Dr. Briain Breiling. He's the editor of a book called Light Years Ahead. And Dr. Breiling, you really call light a nutrient, don't you? It's something that we all need, just like food and water and air. And you pretty much say that light is something that impacts all of us in this winter season when we're kind of a little more depressed and lower energy, especially us here in the Midwest with staying inside all day. Why do we need light like food and water and air?
Well, we have an actual biological need for light. Light jumpstarts our brain and nervous system. Actually, every single rhythm in our body, like plants and animals, is regulated by the cycles of light and darkness.
I never thought about that. Just like a plant needs light to grow and live, you're saying we pretty much need that.
Absolutely, and there are probably farmers in your audience, too, who regulate the laying of their chickens or whatever by the amount of light in the environment in the hen houses. And that's been a well-known fact for, 50, 60 years in veterinary medicine.
So what do you mean that the light jump-starts our minds?
Well, light is a form of, everybody's familiar with the antidepressant Prozac. Light is a form of natural Prozac. It increases the same brain chemical, serotonin, that is increased by Prozac. And it gives us a sense of alertness, mental and emotional stability. During the winter, particularly during these low-light times when people tend to get things like cabin fever, people have a range of symptoms that have to do with, as I say, light starvation, such things as maybe a reduction in sex drive, a drop in energy level, maybe wanting to eat more carbohydrates than usual. It's not unusual for people to gain, who have a winter depression problem, 15 or more pounds in the winter, then to lose it again as the days get longer in the spring and summer and they get more active. But people with a genuine mood disorder or seasonal affective disorder, winter depression, they really get profoundly depressed in the winter, and they have trouble concentrating, maybe decreased creativity, maybe a little more irritable and anxious than they are during the longer, sunnier days of the spring and summer.
But there isn't much of a solution here in the Midwest, is there? I mean, we're all stuck inside. We've pretty much got to be inside. We can't spend our days sunbathing out there in 7 below zero weather.
Exactly. Well, there are some things that we do, and actually they work miraculously. Something called a full-spectrum bright light box is a way to get the brightness of light that one would get outdoors, for example, but it's filtered so it doesn't harm the eyes, while sitting in front of your computer, for example, or reading your newspaper in the morning, or maybe while exercising in your treadmill.
Is this like a sun lamp type thing, or what?
It's a lamp that has all the frequencies, all the colors of natural sunlight. It's not a sun lamp. It doesn't, for example, tan or warm the body. These are all the colors of the visible part of the spectrum with the ultraviolet taken out. Optometric science has known probably about the last 10 or 15 years that certain portions of the ultraviolet spectrum can do harm to the eyes, like increased cataracts, and dermatologists are concerned about melanoma. So there are special bulbs, they're actually fluorescent bulbs, that have a balanced color spectrum, that have all the colors of visible light with the ultraviolet taken out. But the key, Steve, is brightness. We need somewhere between 10 to 20 times the brightness that we get in normal indoor light. And medical scientists really didn't realize until about 20 years ago that our indoor lighting is really grossly inadequate for our biological needs, and as a psychologist, I'm concerned with our psychological needs.
Okay, well, you said that these lamps that you use are fluorescent. Are they not the same type of fluorescent that we use in our homes?
Well, fluorescent lighting isn't created equally. But both the healthiest type of light and the least healthiest type of light are fluorescent lights. Now, the full-spectrum lights, I believe, are the healthiest types of indoor lighting we can expose ourselves to.
That's full-spectrum fluorescent. That's the healthiest.
That's right. And the other types of light are skewed. They're missing important color components. They may be too heavily represented. For example, in the red end of the spectrum, have too much yellow or red, which for some people may make them jumpy or irritable. The other side of the spectrum, the cool white fluorescents, have a higher amount of the greens and blues, which tend to even people out. And you can put these lights in classrooms, and there's some excellent research all over the world, but particularly coming out of Canada. And they're noticing profound changes in children's academic performance in classes, and things like attention deficit disorder symptoms decreasing just by the changing of the environmental light.
Interesting. Dr. Breiling, the book is very complex. I mean, it's extremely interesting, but it's filled with all sorts of detailed information from a variety of doctors across the board. One of the things I learned from it is that you're using light therapy to overcome traumas, such as Vietnam veterans who still have some recurring nightmares, or car crash survivors. How can light therapy help people with traumatic situations?
People who have undergone some type of trauma, like Vietnam vets or Gulf War vets for that matter, or auto accident survivors, are sort of, we can use the analogy, sort of like living with a record that's stuck. They're stuck. Part of their brain and nervous system is stuck back in the previous traumatic memory, and the needle isn't playing over to the next portion of the record. So with light therapy, what I use is specific colors or specific frequencies of light strobed into the eyes, as we do essentially the same types of things that you do in a standard counselor's or therapist office.
So do you just sit in a chair and you've got a little machine that just strobes a certain color light at a person?
Absolutely. And we change the strobe rate depending on what the individual's needs or goals would be. So what I find after 20 years of being a therapist, this just makes the working through of the trauma that much faster and easier, and we can help people in a shorter amount of time.
Let's get to the phone lines. Tom, you have a question for our guest, Dr. Briain Breiling. Hi, Tom.
Hi.
What's your question?
I just had a question for the doctor on some light that was, I've heard of a situation where they've taken collectors up on rooftops and actually jammed light into a collector and then taken fiber optic cables into office buildings and put in recessed can lighting and put a actual real light environment around the people that were working in the buildings. And I was wondering if he had heard anything of that.
Yes, I have. I'm very much in favor of those, and skylights and floor-to-ceiling windows that let in more of the visible natural color spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And those definitely can help our mental functioning and visual functioning. The key, Tom, is brightness. You need a measured brightness, what we call anywhere from 2,500 lux to 10,000 lux, in order to get the appropriate jump start to the brain, the shift in the hormones and the neurotransmitters that the bright light can do.
Well, from what I understand, I hear that, and I'm not trying to single anybody out, but they say that women are more apt to have swings of mood swings that would be created because of not being able to receive the amount of light that they truly need.
Is that true, Dr. Breiling?
Yes, that's right, Tom. Very good. Yeah, women have a tendency about 4 times more frequent to get winter depression than men, and also PMS symptoms in women who get PMS. The majority of them are worse in the winter, and it's all due to lack of light. And the same full-spectrum light boxes that we use to treat winter depression are very effectively used to treat PMS symptoms, and that's been researched medically.
Thanks, Tom. If people are interested in these full-spectrum light boxes, the book contains a lot of information on where they can get these types of things, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So the book is called Light Years Ahead. It's got a list of manufacturers and things. And Dr. Breiling, we've learned, I guess, from you that not all lights are equal. Indoor fluorescent lights or even the yellow light bulbs that we use don't have the full spectrum of light that we all need in the wintertime. I assume you're also saying the same about tanning beds, right? Because that's basically just ultraviolet light.
Tanning beds, I think the jury is still out. I've talked to people in Alaska and very dark places, for example, in Norway, where the sun doesn't shine for 45 days each winter, who seem to get some type of relief from their depression by tanning. But right now, the medical research is really behind the full-spectrum fluorescence that you can have in your working and living environment.
So maybe we're all just, those of us that are stuck here in the cold, snowy winter, we're so starving for any kind of light, at least a tanning bed helps in getting us in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have 3 ways of getting light in. Besides the light boxes, which I think are the mainstay and the ones that have been most medically researched, you can also use a light visor, which is like a baseball cap that has special types of lights that are more full spectrum that you can actually walk around with a battery pack.
Okay, what's the third way?
And the third way is to use a dawn simulator. For those of us who want to hibernate in the winter like a bear and have difficulty getting up in these cold, dark Iowa mornings, you can use, essentially, it's a computer that attaches to your bedside lamp. You can use a regular incandescent lamp.
That's interesting. Dr. Briain Breiling, lots of more information in the book Light Years Ahead on Winzenburg on the Weekend.